Were you Ali's first employee or contractor, or what did the team look like?
So at the time, Ali had one editor, which he had been looking to hire the advert that I saw before, who's Christian, and he's actually still our main editor. He's based in Romania, so
Nice.
he was remote. So I was the first sort of in person in inverted commas because I'm still hybrid, and we lived in the same city, but we didn't work in the same place. And obviously, COVID happened, so we of course couldn't work together for a few months. So, but I was essentially the first kind of UK based hire, I suppose, and then yeah, so it was only us three. So I was right at the start, basically. Yeah, it was only about 2 months after Christian joined. So yeah, right at the start, and Ali had about 450,000 subscribers, I think, at the time.
Nice. And where were your first responsibilities? You mentioned script writing. Can you also mention just like how much were you getting paid at the time? What was the agreement? And then how did it evolve from there, from like being a freelancer to a full-time employee?
Yeah, I remember like the first few things I researched actually included things like COVID. Just like the coronavirus, Ali did a couple of videos about it. What's the difference between coronavirus and the flu and that kind of thing, which everyone was sort of talking about at the time. So a lot of it included that. But in terms of rates, I think I was on £100 a day to start with. I think that then evolved into like £100 a script, depending on when I was actually writing scripts or doing research. And it kind of stayed at that rate for a few months, which was probably I was probably getting, if I'm honest, probably underpaid at that point. But I was happy with what I was doing at the time. I've got to say, it was a job which a lot of people didn't have at that point when COVID hit, and a lot of people were
Hmm.
made redundant and lost their jobs. And it was a remote job, which means it wasn't really affected by COVID. And it kind of evolved. I think it was only from I can't exactly remember the exact date, but I think May, June, when I was put onto more of a I was still kind of on a retainer, but it was more of a salaried one. So I was paid on a monthly basis rather than I was invoicing weekly up until that point because I was paid by the day. And at that stage, I was on, I'm just trying to work it out now. I think just over £2,000 a month,
Okay.
um, which
And
was,
what was that? Was
again,
that just like full-time script writer at that point, or what was the job
it was,
description?
it was there, there wasn't necessarily a job description. That's definitely something within this company. We don't really do titles or job description. Well, I do job descriptions when we're advertising for jobs, but at the time it was very much like generalist. I was researching, I was writing, I was helping with the YouTube uploads and basically being a YouTube producer because Ali was working full time as a doctor. I'd learned how to edit, so I was editing main channel videos as well. So I was editing two or three think like series of videos on the main channel. So all the book club stuff that we started doing in like April 2020, I was editing all of those videos. So basically, I tried to improve my skill set by editing and things like that to enable me to do a lot of different things. Because in a team of three people, we all needed to muck in to a certain extent to be able to get the content out. Because at that stage, Ali was still putting out 3 videos a week. Which, when I think about it now, and we're putting out one video a week, I think how the hell did we ever put out 3 videos a week? But we did, and that kind of needed all of us to a certain extent to muck in and edit, write, research, and that kind of thing. Primarily, it was research and writing, but when needed and when Christian was at capacity, I would take on videos. So I was editing probably 2 or 3 videos a month, and doing, as I said, all the other jobs that needed doing, whether that's helping Ali with the filming as and when we could after the pandemic started to lift. Yeah, basically everything, YouTube producing and things like that as well. So that's kind of how it evolved. And then, as I said, Elizabeth joined in sort of May, and that's when we were a team of four. But again, she was doing like Ali's PA work, so I carried on doing all the research, all the writing, helping Ali on that side of things.
And that generalist kind of like job description is very, I feel like it's very common
Mm,
behind the scenes, especially when you're working with the creator
yeah,
that's like earlier on
yeah,
in their like business development, right? Where it's like it's
yeah,
kind of like YouTube is kind of like the new start and the new like startup business model, right? Where it's just like it's like a very fast growing business. There's like so many different roles that don't really need like a full-time person for one role. And so like usually that first or second hire, which you were, is going to be this generalist that's just like pulling everything together, right? It's like the creator is just has a bunch of ideas, like starting a bunch of different projects, and it's like you have to pull it all together to make the vision come true, right?
Yeah,
Um,
no,
so
completely, completely.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's definitely the analogy between startups and small YouTube companies is very apt because there is a degree to which when we were that size, three or four people, we all knew that we had to wear multiple hats, and no one bemoaning the fact that they had to, oh, I had to edit this, had to write this. Every day was kind of different, but everyone kind of implicitly knew what everyone else was doing, and everyone kind of mucked in to make sure we were all rowing in the same direction, everything was moving forward, we were growing, and that kind of thing. And I think it's just something that you just need to accept if you're a team of that size. If you join a team of that size and you think I've just got one role, I've just got one position, and that's all I'm going to do,
yeah,
you're not gonna survive at all. It's like you're not gonna cope.
yeah. How many hours were you working back then? Like a week?
Probably between 40 and 50. I think it was pretty
Okay.
reasonable. It wasn't too bad. I think it really varied. But I would tend to, especially like thinking back now to the pandemic times, I had like quite a set routine, as I'm sure quite a lot of people tried to
Yeah.
do as well. But I would generally work, yeah, sort of 8 or 9 hours a day, and not really too much on the weekends. So yeah, I'd say between 40 and 50.
And your mentality, I'd love to get into your mentality at the point of
Hmm.
like, hey, like you're a writer and you have to like learn editing. Were you bothered at all by that, or were you like excited by the opportunity of like learning that skill? I'm just curious to like, what's the mentality behind like a generalist, right? And like, I mean, you've been promoted a lot now, right? And you're kind of like the archetypal like good generalist that this type of business needs. And
Yeah.
so, just curious to dive into that mentality of like that you were at the time when you were just like starting and learning all these new things and taking a bunch of responsibilities on.
Yeah, I think to start with, it was pretty daunting to a certain extent because I had been writing for like 2 or 3 months, and then I was just like, well, take my Skillshare class on editing and learn how to edit, and then you can edit. And I was like, okay. But as soon as I did, and as soon as I'd edited one, and that had gone out on the main channel, and now I don't know what it's got now, like over 1 million views or whatever. That's kind of quite validating. And to a certain extent now, I actually prefer editing to writing because it's a new skill. It allows me to kind of have a bit of have an element of creativity that I don't feel I get through writing. I didn't feel I got through writing even at the time. It's kind of exercising a different part of my brain. So I do like the challenge of learning new things. And for example, like this year, taking on the sponsorship side of things as well. Again, it's adding a different skill set, and I do get excited by adding new skills to kind of the generalist repertoire because I do think sometimes actually it can be you can get into a bit of a rut if you don't do that, and you just become kind of just drifting along in what you can do without actually challenging yourself. And so I do kind of like every 3 or 4 months to sort of challenge myself to learn something extra that can move the business forward or whatever. And this year it's been the kind of sponsorship side of things because we left an agency and it was sort of down to me to kind of work on some of those things, as well as we joined another agency, but that's a kind of not another matter. But I was now doing sponsorships and things like that. So every 4 to 6 months, I do try to add stuff to the tool belt because I think it's what you've got to have as a generalist. You've got to be able to do stuff, and you're never going to be as good as some other people in certain aspects. I know we've got a guy who does our marketing and our email funnels and things like that. I know that the technical aspects of that he's far better at, but I know that I can do the broad general and oversee everything that he's doing to make sure everything's going right. And I think that's very much, as you said, like generalists have to have tool belts. They don't have a particular tool that they can use. They can use a lot of different things, and I think adding to that is something that energizes me and has energized me over the last 2.5 years because it's always developing. There's always something new to learn, which is a great place to be.
Yeah, you brought something up that's interesting where like as a generalist, like you're able to kind of like oversee and understand what's happening. Because
Mm,
like at the end of the day, now you're a manager, right? And so
hmm
it seems pretty similar to like in tech where it's like, oh, if you want to be a product manager, you need to know a little bit of coding. You don't need to know how to code the thing, but you need to know like the general concepts. As a general manager, it seems like under having an understanding of like, oh, it's like here's how you edit, here's how you do this, here's how you do that. Like it makes it much easier to kind of manage people, right? And you probably
Yeah.
get a little more respect, like having at least basic knowledge of the skill set that you're managing, right?
Yeah, no, completely. And it's always we've always heard over the last like year and a half, we should be hiring people who are better than us in the roles beneath us. And to a certain extent, I do agree with that. But at the same time, you need to be able to have a decent understanding of what they are doing, such that you do know if they're doing the right thing. So I think, yeah, as you said, there's a need to have a broad overview and control of what someone is doing in a particular role. That's kind of what the manager needs to be able to do to make sure that things are going in the right direction.
If you like this short clip, make sure to check out the full interview right here and subscribe to the channel for more behind the scenes interviews with the people working for your favorite entrepreneurs and creators.